Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we could be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So, like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. And welcome to another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How you fellas doing?
Doing well, man. Got to spend a decent amount of time at the United Center in Chicago. Saw Bulls and Blackhawks game in the same week. Spent a lot of money at the United Center, man. They're just taking my, Jerry Reinsdorf, just always taking my money. But yeah, man. I mean, got to see a great Bulls win last week against the Cavs. If anybody caught that double OT clutch free throw performance that Derrick Rose could have never done, Zoo, by DeMar DeRozan. We finally have a Chicago Bull that can clutch up a game with free throws, man. So it was pleasant to see that.
Okay. Let's take it easy, man. DeMar DeRozan has missed his fair share of free throws too. That his daughter his daughter started yapping at him.
Chirping him.
Yeah, chirping at him. Be like, Daddy, why are you missing free throws? I'm like, I don't know, DeMar. You're 80% free throw shooter. I don't need you to miss clutch free throws. But shout out to DeMar DeRozan, who's playing heavy minutes. And this dude's old. Like, we forget how old this dude is. He recently, shout out to him, he recently hit 23,000 points. So shout out to DeMar DeRozan for that. He's an old man out there. So, yeah, shout out to him for carrying this Bulls team right now because not much else on this roster.
Mm-hmm. And we got NFL coming up too, man. A lot of hype.
Oh, lots of interesting news, man. Lots of interesting news. I'm still waiting for that big trade. I saw a mini trade. I think it's 2 days ago or a day ago, but I need to see
the
that.
Bills, I think, got
the trade. The Bears got a backup lineman.
And you know what's funny is they actually tried to I think they gave him a 4-year, $18 million offer 2 years ago, and the Bills had matching rights on him. And so he stayed. So then Poles just waited till he was completely unrestricted, and then he just gave him a little.
He wanted his guy. He wanted his guy. Yeah, he wanted his
but he's
guy.
like he's a depth lineman that I think plays the most at center. So that's definitely a need that they have. But
no, center is definitely, that's another, when like just doing draft stuff and looking at, not like I'm doing a bunch of draft prep, but looking at the draft in general, like center is one of the more underrated positions of, like, you can never have too much depth. It's kind of like running back, because there's not a lot of good centers. There's not, because
one just retired.
The ones that are really good.
One just retired. Yep.
Shout out to Kelsey, man. Shout out to him. Hall of Famer. But the one that, just retired is a Hall of Famer. And the ones that usually get drafted in the first round are just, like, you want to talk about automatic hits. They are automatic hits every time. So, like,
what was it, Marcus Pouncey or Maurice Pouncey? I forget which one was the center and which one was the guard, but they were beasts.
One of those two. But yeah, the center position is super important. So,
for sure.
Poles got a guy for
Martin, dude. He's starting.
Got the bug, man. But speaking of free agency with the NFL, I was just thinking to myself, like, when the Russell Wilson news, came down the timeline, I was thinking, like, you know what? Like, I kind of think this free agency might be a little bit spicier than more people are leading on. I think there's going to be a lot of movement, especially within the quarterbacks and maybe some receivers and running backs moving around. So I wanted to kind of focus strictly on the quarterbacks. And with Russell Wilson, he got cut by the Denver Broncos. That cap hit is pretty insane.
$90 million.
But yeah, I kind of wonder, Sean Payton, him being the new head coach now, him just being like, look, it's either him or me. You guys brought me in here to be the head coach of Denver Broncos. If I don't want him, we got to get rid of him. And, as much as what Denver invested in Russell Wilson, Sean Payton's like, I'm the new sheriff of town. So besides that, I kind of wanted to ask the guys, where do you think Russell Wilson would be? I guess you could say legit starter or someone who could be a competitive piece for someone to battle. And Peebush, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh, man, this is tough, man, because first of all, as a Bears fan, man, I know about my team getting some fleecing of trades, but man, Seattle absolutely fleeced Denver in hindsight, of course. I thought they still fleeced them in general, but not to this level after we've seen the past 2 seasons. So, it sucks for the Broncos. I mean, they pretty much traded their future for this guy who they thought was just going to be the exact same version of himself that he was in Seattle probably 2 or 3 years before they traded for him. So it was just a dumb trade. It was I want to put it on the Herschel Walker for any NFL historians there. That trade that the Vikings made that pretty much set up the Cowboys in the 90s for Super Bowl victories, but it's pretty bad. So, man, I don't know what the market's going to be after his last 2 seasons. I mean, to be fair, the second half of this year, he was actually playing pretty well after they had that horrible start. Everyone remembers the 70-point defensive blunder against the Dolphins. But they did actually kind of turn, they didn't compete for the division, but they turned it around. I think they were around 500, like 9-8, 8-9, something like that. Respectable, but obviously not what they need. And then to your point, Sean Payton probably just gave him an ultimatum, but I'm looking at a team in the same division that is really up in the air at quarterback, man, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. You're talking about they can get a guy who has interdivisional knowledge, not only just of the other 2 teams, but obviously the Broncos themselves, who are going to be starting fresh. He can bring in what Sean Payton at least had been trying to have him be doing in the offensive scheme. I'm sure that will change going into next season, but I think a familiarity will help. I think you can probably get him on a little bit cheaper of a contract just based on them completely releasing him out of Denver and just based on his play the past couple of years. And he's still got, Devontae Adams. I'm not sure what Josh Jacobs' situation is right now, but, they still have him. They have the 13th pick in the draft. I think they're going to miss on most of the good quarterback talent unless they decide to pull a blockbuster trade and trade up. And if you're asking me, okay, they're sitting at 13 and J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix are there, I'm not taking him over Aiden O'Connell, who actually was serviceable. He played better than Jimmy G, that's for sure. He was the better option. But he still wasn't great. So bringing Russ in, you still have a wide receiver 1. I know he's getting older, but Devontae Adams is still an absolute monster who can get it done. So I know you're a Devontae fan through and through. Maybe not as much last year, I know that, but he's still an absolute stud, probably one of the top 5 talented receivers in the league. So I just think the familiarity in the division also helps, and maybe they take a stab for him. Just because I do think that draft, they're not going to hit on a quarterback, and they need to address that this year.
Interesting. For me, Russell Wilson, he's more of a mentor / backup quarterback now, or a rental, like a 1 year. Like you have Russell in for that 1 year to start because he's going to be making like no money at all. So low investment, put him in for a year, get a quarterback in as a backup, sit behind him, watch him play, and then boom, put in that rookie. So I'm going to go with the New England Patriots.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm going with the New England Patriots because Russell Wilson, he's just not that guy no more. Like last year, his numbers, if you just look on paper, kind of good, actually. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, like a QB rating 98. I'm like, that's pretty solid. But as you can see, like Sean Payton and him didn't get along. I feel like there's a lot of selfish football where Russell Wilson was protecting his stats, knowing his future was it was a little shaky. So maybe he played more for his low numbers instead of going for wins. Russell Wilson was trying to preserve that QB rating and that QBR to make his stats look a little better than he really was. Because based on what you watch, Russell Wilson, I was kind of shocked by his numbers. I know Cortland Sutton made some unbelievable catches, getting some crazy touchdowns. So shout out to Sutton for helping Russ out. But Russell Wilson, his numbers look good, but I feel like his football playing was just not that great last year. So Sean Payton had to move on, and that cap kid is crazy. That is crazy. 30 plus in 1 year, and the next year $50 million, and you just letting him go. You're paying. Oh my! I'm like, Jesus. How bad can you be for that to happen?
Or how bad can the relationship between everybody be?
I think it's more the relationship. Yeah.
I don't know. Clearly Sean Payton was done with him after he saw him yelling at him at the sideline and pretty much making it show it's his fault, it's not mine. So they had to move on from him. But Russell Wilson, this is your opportunity, man, to be a nice little veteran guy. Now, it's a new stage of your career, even though based on his age, you shouldn't be out of your prime now. You got guys playing in their 40s and still in their prime. Like Russell Wilson, I don't know what happened. Maybe the injuries caught up with them. I know he was a little banged up last year and the year before. They had a shoulder injury, so maybe the injuries are catch up to Russell Wilson. But be that mentor role now. Go to the Patriots. I feel like the Patriots are probably aiming for a quarterback this year. I don't know if it's going to be Drake May or whoever at the number 3 overall pick. Maybe I heard Drake May is more of a project. Maybe have to sit a year. So maybe put in Russell Wilson for a rental, pay him $1 million, $2 million, whatever. Get him to starting. Drake May off the bench. Maybe learn from him. Boom. Have that nice conduit over to the next era of quarterback. So that's his role. Jayden
Daniels might be a good fit to be mentored by Russell Wilson. I'm not saying they're the exact same.
Yeah,
but
elite
a little
athlete.
bit, Russell had a good
scrambled.
deep ball early in his career with Seattle. He still has a good deep ball when he has accuracy, but Jayden Daniels, I've been watching a lot of LSU tape, man. The Patriots might pull the trigger at 3 on him.
Daniels' progression, he's not Joe Burrow, but if you look at how they both came into LSU and then when they both left LSU, I know it's easy to say, well, they both won Heisman, but just the throws they both were making and the amount of plays. Now, Daniels is a better athlete, but I'm just saying in terms of the amount of plays they were making, the playmakers they were throwing to, it's kind of similar. I think Joe Burrow looked at as a better passer, but it ain't off by much.
Really?
I want the Bears.
Really?
No,
Really?
Let's not get twisted.
That's a big statement. That's a big statement.
I would rather have Burrow. I would rather have Burrow if you held a gun to my head. But if you look at their trajectory, if you go back and look at how they first came into college, like one started at Ohio State and Joe Burrow, one started at Arizona State. Joe Burrow didn't really get on the field because I think he was behind like Dwayne Haskins and another guy. And then I guess you could say at Arizona State, Jayden Daniels kind of coaching change. It was kind of he just didn't have a really good year. Then they both came into LSU the year before. Jayden Daniels, I would say, probably played a little bit better in his first year because he kind of was, I guess you could say, his playmakers at the time were, I don't know. Joe Burrow had some dudes too, but I just think maybe the whole team as a whole that year.
Too. He had more experience.
Yeah, I think Daniels was a little bit more, I feel like, I don't know. He's just more of a better overall player. But then Burrow took that crazy leap that second year, won a national championship. And we all know about his playmakers, but he just evolved as a passer. Jayden Daniels, I felt like the passing was always there because the thing too with Daniels was a higher, if you're a recruiting guy, Daniels was a way higher recruit than Burrow was. I think Burrow was a mid-4-star, but like Daniels was like the number 2 quarterback coming out. I just think he was probably like in that 94, 95 range. So he had the talent, but I think in that second year with Daniels, having neighbors, Brian Thomas, Lacey, another receiver that's coming back for them at LSU, like his weapons were pretty crazy. So like Daniels' progression is kind of very similar to Burrow's. I just think Burrow is a more pinpoint passer, but just how their careers went at LSU, the only difference is, Joe Burrow won the championship in college, but Daniels is getting a lot of hype because he just.
Is he number 2 now? Do you think he's going to be the number 2 pick now? Because I heard a lot more bullishness on Daniels compared to Drake May.
Chicago.
That's what I've been hearing.
See, it's Chicago because if Chicago just takes Caleb, then it's hard to figure out because from what I've been seeing is Caleb's wanting to go to Washington. So like if they're trading back, then if they switch that pick, I don't know if Daniels is who Chicago wants.
No,
and I don't know if Drake. I don't think Drake May is. I don't think Drake May. And honest to God, I don't think. And I know Caleb is getting. And I'm going on a sidetrack, but this is what we always do on the podcast. I don't think it's a crazy gap like how everybody's like it's Caleb Williams and everybody else. I think it's clear cut Caleb Williams, but it's like Caleb Williams and then the rest of the guys. I don't think it's Caleb Williams and then everybody else. So that's why I think it's this kind of and like Drake May and Jayden Daniels. It's like pick your poison.
Oh, yeah, I think it's pick your poison. I think this draft has been so overhyped with 2 guys. Obviously, we know Caleb and the other one's Marvin. I said this last week. I don't think Neighbors is that far behind Marvin Harris. I don't think
there's 3 receiver runs in this draft, I feel like.
And Rome Odunze, Odunze's been going hard in the combine. Now, I know it's not perfect.
He's good.
Xavier Worthy's probably going to get drafted by the Raiders because he's the fastest guy in the combine, man. They always seem to pick the fastest guy. The combine does not necessarily mean success, but I think it does show talent gaps. I think that is a big thing. Obviously, everything else that they take into account, and I'm sure we'll get into draft.
And Brian Thomas Jr., who what's his face, Jayden Daniels was throwing to, he's like the prototypical like 6'4", 210, and he ran a 4.3. So it's like, I think the only thing with his is just him was just consistency, but it's hard to be consistent when Neighbors was the number 1 guy over there. Like I saw a mock there today where they were Cincinnati was going to take him. And I was like, God, if Cincinnati was able to get him, holy crap! Like, that would be ridiculous. But
the draft is going to be a great draft. But yeah,
the draft is going to be
agency first.
But yeah, for real. Going back to our point, Russell, I agree with Zoo. Last year he played okay, but I don't think there's a position where, we're going to be looking up and Russell Wilson's like in week 11 or week 12, and they're talking about him being a possible MVP candidate. I don't think those days are ever coming back. But I do think he is a good placeholder for a team. And, depending on how the year goes, if he has a good year, you can bring him back. If not, then the guy you got behind him is hopefully ready to go and perform at a high level. And I always think about teams who, especially with Russell, like I'm not saying Denver's a bad franchise because they're a pretty solid franchise. They've been to Super Bowls. I think their infrastructure is pretty decent with John Elway and all those guys. And Seattle, for the most part, when they had Pete Carroll and I don't know who their GM and all that stuff is, but they seem pretty stable. I'm trying to think of a franchise that's like, who is stable? Who is a franchise for a fact is going to be, come hell or high water, they're going to have a good sense of foundation. Is like, you ain't got to worry about all the riffraff. Like, because I can't picture Russell Wilson at like Tennessee or like a franchise where it's just, I don't trust their organization. So my mind automatically went to Pittsburgh. Nobody likes Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh, except for the team that drafted him. I think Pittsburgh likes him. And I think Pittsburgh kind of looks at Kenny Pickett as like, he's a placeholder. He's a guy, if we can limit his mistakes, he'll be good for us. I don't know if he'll be good in another situation, but he'll be good for us. We can just limit his mistakes. Well, I think Russell Wilson will be perfect for competition one, because let's face it, P. Bush, I know you like Mitchell.
They released him.
They did release him, but I just didn't think that was like we're going to go into camp and this is going to be a battle.
Rudolph
right?
played better.
Yeah, and I think that's just more because he's been there and knows the system.
And he's leaving too.
He's leaving in free agency too. So I was thinking to myself, like, worst come to worst, Russell comes in, he battles Kenny Pickett. Let's say he wins the job. Pittsburgh has talent. They have a lot. Like, I think they have a lot of receiving talent. Najee's on his last leg, but guess what? Enter Jaylen Warren. You have a pretty decent tight end. Darnell Washington, too. I think next year is going to make a little bit more noise. I don't know about this year. He's kind of an inline blocker, but maybe he evolves as a pass catcher. They got talent. And I'm not saying, I just said, 10 seconds ago, like, Russell Wilson is not going to be in any type of MVP conversation. But considering that division, if you tell me you got to play Lamar, you got to play Joe Burrow, you got to play Deshaun, if you could just pick them off once a piece, like go 1-1 in those games, then Pittsburgh always, with that franchise, they always figure out how to win those other games like 14-9 and
they'll make the playoffs.
17-12.
They'll
make the playoffs. And I think, with Russell Wilson, he gives you a better chance to do that. Like, there's no shot at Kenny Pickett, but I just think Russell Wilson, considering how last year he ended kind of in weird terms in Denver, but I still think he has a little bit in there to where if he can just game manage, Pittsburgh would be a perfect situation for him. Because, so you don't want to put him in a situation, not saying Denver don't have talent, but you don't want to put him in a situation where he has to go win a bunch of ball games. He can't do that. And in Pittsburgh, man, we've been saying since Ben Roethlisberger, if they just had a steady guy, they would be way better because they always figure out how to get to 8-8. So if you tell me Russell comes in there, they can't maybe, 10-6, maybe 11 and whatever, like he'll pick off some games. I just need Russell to maybe have 2 or 3 hero games out the season. He don't need to be a freaking, savior because he can't do that. And if he does that, he could get them in the playoffs. But I don't like any other fit. Like New England's a nice one as a bridge, but I don't. Russell was the toughest one for me because it's really tough to see because of his name and what he's done where he fits in the best. Like, because I don't want. Because you know what? Like Tennessee, I would not want him at. I wouldn't want him at. I know you said Vegas, but that would, to me, the Vegas play would just be because he played in Denver and maybe get some trade secrets. Like, I think they should Raiders should try to trade up and get a quarterback. They should try to do that.
They should.
Because they got Devontae Adams. Like, imagine being a rookie, get to throw to Devontae. Like, I would rather. That's going to help your progression a lot.
Well, they did that with Aiden O'Connell. Not that he's any of the other ones.
He's got a great name. I think that's a great name, but
it's a great name. But dude, they'd have to trade up. They'd have to give up so much to get up, and they would probably be dumb and go for Drake May. Like that would be.
Yeah, that's the only one they'd probably be able to get. Honestly, if they trade it, because there's no way they can get. I don't think anybody in the top 2.
The Bears, the only way they would do it is if they got Max Crosby, and the Commanders probably aren't going to trade that pick unless it's to get up to number 1 to get Caleb.
Yeah, I think the Commanders only going up. I don't think they trade down.
No,
at all. I don't think they trade down. But going into Kirk, because we spent a bunch of time talking about
it's all good.
The draft. But going into Kirk, to me, and this is so hilarious because the Atlanta Falcons have always been the focus of like Justin Fields. But I was like, bro, why not just Kirk Cousins?
Yeah.
And let me explain why. Kirk Cousins to me, and I know he had the Achilles injury. And I actually agreed with Zoo last week because I was like, yeah, he's coming off Achilles. I don't know. But then I was thinking about it more. I was like, he don't run around.
No, he doesn't.
He's
move.
not a running around quarterback to where he's going to be making a bunch of plays. Like, I would be more, nervous if it was Anthony Richardson or Lamar Jackson. But, Kirk stays in the pocket. So I think Raheem Morris, this is his second go around. Like, he was really, really young when he was in Tampa Bay. And some would say he was probably too young to have that job, and he ended up getting fired. But I do think with Atlanta, if they just have someone steady, you have the weapons. And I think just for survival in that division, if you just have a quarterback who's steady and good, a la the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield, I think they could easily, I don't know what Baker's future is going to be. Tampa Bay may resign him. But, push come to shove, I think I would rather have Kirk than Baker. And I also think, them resigning Mike Evans with Tampa Bay, I think that's a big deal. And they still have a lot of weapons on that team. But I think Raheem's going to understand, and I'm not sure his offensive coordinators, but I think he's going to understand we got to feature Bijan. We got to feature Drake. Maybe we can get something out of Kyle Pitts. I think Jonnu Smith is still there. They got dudes, and their defense is always solid enough. It's not like the defense is going to lose some games. I think that's the perfect matchup. I think Raheem Morris is kind of like, hey, let me get a guy who's a veteran. We're going to do the test, of course, to see if he's still, his legs are still good and everything's fine in terms of his surgery. But I think he could do a double play here. Like, he could get Kirk Cousins, sign him to you, because you're going to have to pay him. And for good reason. Like, Kirk, I know he gets lumped into average quarterback territory, and I think macro he is average. But it's like he's actually like average plus, I'll say. And Kirk Cousins is not going to lose you a bunch of games, and he's not going to win you like the Super Bowl, I don't think. But he could steady you. And I think the Falcons, I'm not sure where they would take a quarterback, but maybe they could draft a quarterback in the second or third round, developmental type, because I do think Kirk would be a great type of mentor to another quarterback. So I think him coming in he'll sign a 2 or 3 year contract for however much money, come to Atlanta. I think in that division, if Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta, I think they win it. I think they can win that division easily because I think him and those weapons would be great. And if they draft a developmental quarterback, that'd be good for Kirk and the franchise going forward. I think competition.
I think the Vikings will probably stick with him.
Probably, yeah. If I had to bet on it, yeah.
But I totally agree with you. If he is to leave, the Falcons need to make the play for it because they're both around. I forget what they're, because I saw the Raiders were at 13. I think the Vikings are at 11.
Yeah, I'm not sure where.
Something like that. And the Falcons are maybe like
9, I think, 8 or 9,
something like that. So they're all outside those 3 teams. I know I mentioned that we set aside the Raiders here, but both the Vikings and the Falcons are just outside that range where they can get a top 3. And do any one of those teams want to trade one of their young good pieces to pair up to move up? Because you're not getting up to number 1 from 9 or 11 unless you're trading picks and a player. They're not trading Addison. They're not trading Hawkinson. They're not trading Justin Jefferson, right? And anybody on the defense.
Are they? I've been hearing some weird stuff about that, which I don't understand. But
Hawkinson's expected to miss half the season with coming off his ACL surgery.
Yeah.
So they're losing weapons. I think you could argue entering into the season. I know Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the league or top 2. You could argue that the Falcons have better weaponry overall without a fully healthy Hawkinson. I know Addison had a great year.
Bijan tips the scale, yeah.
But it's Bijan. Once again, we're going to say this for another year in a row, the potential of Kyle Pitts, if he can get unlocked. And we do know that Kirk Cousins has very good reps.
Kirk Cousins might do that. He would be shooting up my fantasy boards if they get Kirk Cousins. I'll tell you that right now.
Dude, Drake London, man, would be skyrocketing up.
Yep.
And obviously Bijan's Bijan, right? So that he doesn't need to rely on the quarterback. But we know that he is a great pass catcher. And we saw what he was able to do with Dalvin Cook for a couple of years in the pass catching game. I would like to see him on the Falcons just for a change up, get some new fantasy guys involved, right? See that stock kind of skyrocket. But I just think the Vikings, they don't have a quarterback plan. They tried like 4 options last year. Yeah, I just think they're probably going to give him maybe like a 2-year deal and pay him. But
real quick, Kirk Cousins he has really gamed the system.
Oh,
ever since he left Washington, he's really gamed the system.
He got paid a lot.
fully guaranteed
He's
contract.
gaming, bro.
Yeah, his agent doing the work now.
He needs to write a book. Him and his agent need to write a joint book on
Just
how
watch
to do this.
QB1 again, Sean. He's the man.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
that
not a
too.
lot. That brought up his stock,
man.
Dude, that brought up his stock a lot. Like, shout out to Kirk Cousins about to get another bag post Achilles injury. That's hard to do.
Yep.
It's supposed to be like this career-ending like type of injury. I'm like, nope. You hear all these things about Kirk Cousins, and I feel like that's what's halting the trades right now because they're seeing where Kirk Cousins go, and after that, probably resort to like a backup option, maybe trade for a quarterback if they can't get Kirk Cousins. But this guy's the guy on the market right now, and I keep hearing the Falcons. I just keep hearing that for some reason, and I feel like that might be delaying a potential Justin Fields deal from getting done. Maybe seeing how the Kirk Cousins situation gets done. So I'm extremely interested to see where he goes. But off an Achilles, I know the guy doesn't run that much, but still off an Achilles, man. And he's gonna be good. Like, is he gonna be the same thrower of the football off a catastrophic injury? I'm kind of nervous about that. I don't want to give Kirk Cousins a long-term deal. Like,
Is the Achilles 1 year? Is the Achilles becoming the new ACL? Remember how everybody was like the ACL just is like devastating, and then like now people are coming back 5 and 6
ACL got way too many people that come back and they just ball out. Like ACL got way too many guys.
Achilles is a way more devastating injury, but
for sure,
I think Achilles is way worse.
Well, because it just ties your entire leg together.
Yeah, it's your entire movement. Yeah, and your reaction in terms of like sudden when you're trying to like maybe move outside the pocket.
Yep,
that could really screw you up.
Yeah, people say they get an ACL injury, they get stronger afterwards. Like, I don't hear that from Achilles. Like, I do not hear that from an Achilles injury. Ooh, I'm stronger now.
Rodgers will be the first test of like, will he come back and play MVP? Who did? Oh yeah, well, basketball might be a little.
Yeah, I don't know. Kobe wasn't that good.
I'd argue that's harder though.
Kobe was not that good after.
Either way, it's an Achilles injury.
Yeah,
brutal.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. But
I'm trying to think. It took. Who was it? Jets running back, Breece Hall. It took him a little. His an Achilles, or was it? Was his ACL?
This was knee injury. I think the only guy in the modern era that come back from an Achilles is probably Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant had pretty much identical post injury, which is impressive as hell. Because I thought KD's superstar career might be over.
Like a human. He's not.
Yeah, that is true.
He came back, but he wasn't the same. He got cut by the Vikings. Or not cut, I guess released, whatever.
You could argue that that's also a concern on the Vikings side too. You know, like, do we want to pay this guy and pass up on maybe pulling off a trade in this draft? I mean, he's definitely a question mark, but I think everyone's so tied to the weapons that he could have, obviously, with staying with Minnesota, but also going to a new spot like Atlanta. I don't know, man.
Those are the two spots he needs to go.
Someone's going to take a gamble. He's not going to be unrestricted all next year. He
doesn't need to go to like a Tennessee or some weird obscure franchise. He needs to stay. Those are the two franchises he needs to go to. Because Kirk, I will say, I can't really remember who his weapons were in Washington, but his weapons have been pretty good. I mean, he's been with the Vikings, and that's it. Like, you want to kind of stay in that realm where you are throwing to elite playmakers and players, because you don't want to go somewhere where you're the guy, and all of a sudden you're looking at the 2-year contract and they're treating you like Russell Wilson and just getting you out of here and eating the money, which is so crazy in the NFL that they're just able to eat money like that. But speaking of guys who you may want to mortgage your future on, I was kind of looking at the quarterback market and was just like, who is going to be like the next guy? And I started looking like Dak. Tua's coming up. I think he's on his 5th-year option. Like, there's some guys that are in the wings that are full disclosure, I don't think any of these guys are the Burrows, the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts. They're not in that tier.
Nope.
So it's always interesting when you're talking about quarterbacks that are not in that tier, what their contract is going to look like. So I wanted to ask the guys out of Trevor Lawrence. Who else did I have? Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, and Tua Tagovalioa. Who of these guys would you be most comfortable with just saying, screw it, I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay the full freight, and I may not sleep well at night, but I'll get sleep. I'll get decent sleep, at least. And Zoo, where you going with this one?
All I know is if I give Tua the bag, I'm having some sleepless nights, man. I'll be lots of bags underneath my eyes,
and turning.
Man. I'm telling you, Tua, oh my God, man. I'll be nervous as hell with this dude. Because this guy is a bona fide regular season quarterback in a beautiful system, in the beautiful, warm, sunny weather. Because when it gets colder, when the team gets tougher, Tua starts shrinking, man. I swear to God, Tua Tagovalioa, like in the playoffs, like obviously he played in some cold temperature, like Kansas City he was awful. He was just awful, man. Like, there's certain guys that are just built for the cold. I see a Tom Brady, I see a Mahomes, I just see some of these guys, Big Ben, like they're like unfazed by weather, and those guys are just built a little different. Like I think Brock Purdy is a solid quarterback, but he ain't built like that. Like weather really affects a guy like Brock Purdy, and I feel like weather affects a guy like Tua Tagovalioa. And if I'm giving a guy the bag, weather can't be an issue, man. Like you gotta be playing through snow, sleet, rain, ice, sunny weather, warm weather, whatever weather. You got to be the same dude at all times. Yep. So Tua, man, dude, and the history with his injuries too. And he's just a smaller dude too. Like he just got a lot of like, okay, like without Tyreek Hill, where would this dude be? Like seriously, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and I think his head coach is pretty smart too. So like you combine all those things on offense, like his head coach is good. All these like things on offense just coming together, and they just they whoop the bad teams because they just out scheme them. And then you play against these really good physical defenses that have really good offenses too, and they get their butt whooped. And Tua is not stepping up. Like Tua's out for me. So I'm down to Dak Attack and T-Law right now. And Dak Attack, he's another guy in the regular season. Oh, he looked pretty good. Like he bounced back this year, like having a MVP caliber season, which I thought was too crazy when I say MVP caliber. But the quarterbacks this season in the regular season weren't that impressive. So I guess Dak Prescott had a top 5 quarterback season based on regular season statistics. But in the playoffs, man, Jesus Christ. Dude, I see Jordan Love having more confidence than Dak Prescott. Like that first quarter, deer in headlights, man. I saw him panicking. I saw him missing throws that he made. I saw CeeDee Lamb snapping at him. And his team was pretty damn healthy. Like his team was fully loaded at home, and all his weapons were healthy. Like you had the same
weather.
No weather issue. They're in a dome. Yep. This is another system. I got Mike McCarthy offense, relatively same core. Like Dak Prescott, I thought this was the season they're going to make it to the NFC Championship. No. Shame on me for believing in them. Jesus Christ, they wet the bed, and Dak Prescott was the reason because he was missing throws. It wasn't like a defense wasn't that good either, but the offense was just sad. It was sad, just missing wide open throws. CeeDee Lamb getting frustrated. You had all the weapons in the world. Like, my God. So it ain't Dak Attack either.
You're going.
So I'm gonna go with T-Law, man. I'm still a little nervous because T-Law's only had one playoff performance so far. And half the game, he was the worst quarterback I've ever seen. He had, I believe, 4 interceptions. 4 interceptions. But I'm gonna take the big body, the big strong body, T-Law, man. T-Law is built. He's 6'6". He's a legit 6'6". Physically, I feel like he has like money. If I'm gonna give money to a quarterback, I feel like even though he got a little nicked up this year, I think he's the least injury prone based on his stature, his physicality. So I'm gonna go with that with T-Law. Number 2, we haven't seen his ceiling yet. Dak Prescott.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm saying that. Dak Prescott. I think we all know what Dak Prescott. Yes, I think we all know what Dak Prescott is as of now.
Okay, I'm saying that
more so than Trevor Lawrence. Yes.
Trevor Lawrence. There's still a little mystery in there. They
got him an all-pro receiver. Christian Kirk, I know he was hurt for a little bit of the year.
Okay.
He's a great receiver. Evan Ingram had a all-pro best season of his career, and they couldn't. And ATN, top 3 running back this year.
Okay, let's take it easy. Okay, let's start with the all-pro receiver. Okay, Calvin Ridley. I was hyped about Calvin Ridley. He was not that good this year. He was dropping passes like crazy. I would know because I watched him a lot this year. He dropped a lot of passes. What?
He also missed a lot of throws to.
I give you that. In the red zone, there were certain times I had to scratch my head a little.
I had the stack too. I had the stack. Trust me, I watched every Jags game with ATN. Come on, man.
So, okay, so that's not a bold day. Calvin Ridley, I thought he was going to be awesome. He was not awesome. He was a nice.
He might not be with the team this year.
Yeah. He's like a nice little, like, maybe a wide receiver, solid wide receiver too, caliber receiver. Like, he might have some big games now a little later, but no, he ain't the alpha that I thought he was going to be. So let's take it easy about. Okay. Evan Ingram. Okay, he's a good tight end. He's a good tight end. I give you that. Evan Ingram's actually. Yeah, he had a great year for a tight end position, man. Okay, ETN. Okay, that's a cute little running back. Okay.
No.
Okay, you said top 3?
Yeah. It was him, Brees, and McCaffrey. Statistically, this year,
McCaffrey would be number 1, but yeah, he's a top 3. Especially as an all-around.
Wait.
ETN in that order.
Are you saying he had a top 3 season, or you think he's a top 3 running back going forward? So this upcoming year,
top 3 running back going forward.
Season.
Oh, you're talking about going forward or this season?
I am.
Oh, you're talking going forward.
Season, I'm saying I don't know why Trevor Lawrence didn't do well this year when he had solid weapons. Maybe not perfect.
I gotta say this.
He made the playoffs without some of these guys.
Okay. The high ankle sprain. I told you. I remember I was out on the J. I remember saying this when the high ankle sprain injury happened. I was like, I'm out.
Man, he lost he had a same record as Gardner Minshew.
Okay, I gave you that. Losing that last game of the regular season.
Man, damn.
Yeah, that last game of the regular season, that was embarrassing because he controlled his own destiny. Couldn't get him in. Like Trevor Lawrence, big, strong guy. That ankle sprain deteriorated him.
Go ahead, people. Who do you want?
Dude, T-Law, every time that he doesn't know he looks over at Doug Peterson with just like the most aloof look on his face. Like, I have no idea what I am looking at here. And it's so funny to watch because I watched every one of his games. I was so high on Trevor Lawrence this year. I know he had the injury, whatever.
Injuries, man.
No, I know, but you got to admit, a lot of people, he was the sleeper quarterback stack this year with Calvin Ridley. You bought in on that too with Calvin Ridley. He was expected to take the leap this year, just like Justin Fields was. And people shit on Justin Fields, excuse me for my language, all the time.
I see all this. Justin Fields.
Here we go.
People hating on him. He ain't that guy, but the Trevor Lawrence gets all that. Oh, I see it now. Now I see why this disgust with Trevor Lawrence, because his boy Justin Fields doesn't get the same love. Everything makes sense now. Everything makes sense now.
Dude, this has been a thing since high school. These guys have been compared since high school.
Oh, man. Makes sense now.
But look, 8-9, man, 8-9. Come on. I mean, this team was way better. Their defense was not that bad this year. Doug Peterson's a great head coach. I think we can all agree on that. Travis Etienne had I'm saying a top 3 season. The reason they lost most of their games was because of Trevor Lawrence this season.
He did have 14,
29 and 14.
Yeah, his turnover issues is a problem.
There is a reason that they haven't picked up his 5th-year option yet. The same situation. They already picked up Tua's. Tua got his picked up back in, I think, 2023, last year.
Good luck with that.
I agree.
I'm telling you, Tyreek Hill makes people look special.
But my point is, they're treating Trevor Lawrence like I'm not trying to compare him. I know Justin Fields is not a good thrower. He's obviously a much better thrower than Justin Fields. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
But the fact that one gets a lot more hate for misplay than the other is funny. I just find it interesting because they have
the reason
so much.
It's the Chicago media versus Jacksonville media.
It is. Very true.
It's about Jacksonville. Respect to Jacksonville.
Very true. But I don't know. I'm going with Dak, and here's the reason. He's got the most experience. I know he's a regular season quarterback, but all these guys are regular season quarterbacks. So I'm going to go with the guy that has been there the longest, put up the most numbers. Have only 31. These other guys are, I think, 24 and 25 respectively.
Mm-hmm. More upside.
But also they have not shown much steps. I mean, like you said, take Tyreek off the Dolphins. I don't know how Tua's playing, man. You take away most of Trevor Lawrence's decent weapons. I don't know how he's not even playing well with them. I don't know what they can do to make him play better. But if Calvin Ridley wasn't the answer, I don't think they're going to address it this year. So he's not going to have another great season unless Christian Kirk just pops off for like 1,500 yards or something like, or Zay Jones finally stays healthy. He seems to be the missing diamond in the rough for that team. I don't know. I just don't see Trevor Lawrence getting I know we don't use max terms in the NFL, but you know what I'm talking about, like the $50 million a year.
Yeah, the $200 million deal.
I don't think any of these guys are worth it, but Dak is probably the closest and the most realistic of actually getting that.
Dak's probably going to get it out of this entire group.
I would still lose a little sleep, but I'm the most comfortable, unfortunately, picking Dak Prescott, which is so hard for me to say, man.
Because Dak's probably going to get the $200 million deal on a 3-year deal, probably. Like
he said he's expecting like 50 to 60 million a year or something like that. I saw him. He made
and a lot of
comment
that too
on
is he's America's quarterback. So
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. Think about it like this though. Imagine if Dak was, let's just say he's making it to the divisional round, but not even making it to the, if he was consistently getting to the divisional round every year since he's been there, he'd probably be looking at 350. Like, I mean, being America's quarterback is a big deal. I can't even imagine like if Patrick Mahomes was like America's team's quarterback, what his deal would be. It would. I don't even think it would register how much he would be getting paid. Yeah, he'd be probably the first $1 billion deal because it's just the amount of money and whatever. But that's another topic.
Oil money, man.
For sure. A lot of oil money in Dallas. But I'm kind of going to agree here with Zoo, man. I think Trevor Lawrence, the thing with him is if you throw out his rookie year, and I can't count that because, I mean, it's
Urban Myers, man. Urban Myers. That's a write-off.
That's a write-off.
Kind of a just, disaster. That season, I think he only threw like 8 interceptions. He had like 28-something touchdowns. I will agree that playoff game was kind of weird. But I think it showed at least the amount of stuff you want to see from a quarterback. Like, he had a bad first half, whatever. But he battled back. They won the game. I like to see that from my quarterback because most times in any situation with your quarterback, you're not going to be in ideal situations. I keep repeating that word. But I like that he battled and showed like, hey, I can be a number 1 quarterback. I was a number 1 pick. I can do this. Let's go. Then he went to, Chiefs Kingdom and he lost. He played with Mahomes and they battled in that game. It's not like they got blown out. He battled in that game.
Yep.
And, from Zoo's point too, he has all the tools. He has the ability to make every throw. He has the ability to be elusive outside the pocket. I also think too, and this is something that is tying into my point about him being resilient. These are all competitive guys, man. You looking across your division, you see CJ Stroud balling in his rookie year. He was in the playoffs getting all the pub. Anthony Richardson, I know he got hurt, but a lot of people are ready for him to come back this year and show that, hey, maybe, all the love he's getting to CJ Stroud, we should be giving to Anthony Richardson because he might be that more dynamic of a player. I think that's kind of going to give some motivation to Trevor to be like, this is my money year. I need to go up. I need to go off. And I do agree to your point that he didn't, I think it was kind of both with Ridley and him. I think Ridley coming back, sitting on the couch all year. I mean, I'm not saying he was sitting on the couch all year, but, he wasn't playing in the game.
Yeah.
And I think Trevor trying to figure out that rapport with him was kind of tough. I do think he's a receiver too. I don't know what their draft capital is, but they need to go try to maybe see, because this year in receiver, the drafted receivers, it's a lot of dudes. So
a lot of good ones.
If you're even maybe thinking like, I don't know if we need a receiver, just take one because there's a lot of guys that's probably going to produce this year. So they should go, and I'm a big proponent of giving my quarterback a lot of weapons, but I will say if they somehow can get another just solid receiver with Trevor Lawrence, then I think he could evolve into being one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC because ETN, I think, is going to be a monster. Like you're talking about this past year, but I think going like further down the road, I think he's going to be more of a top 5, top 3 type back. I think he has that potential because he can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, he's a good catcher.
And two, with a lot of this stuff is maybe Trevor, because he's the number 1 pick, he probably feels like he has to win a bunch of games when, a lot of people love to go to the game manager term, but maybe he just needs to learn how to be more of a game manager during the season and just get them over the hump when he needs to. And then come playoff time, turn up. I think Jacksonville as a franchise historically, I mean, it's not the greatest. They've had some moments, but I think Trevor, him being a number 1 pick, maybe he just thinks he needs to do more. And I just think he has it in him to do it. Like, I like that second year with Doug Peterson. Plus, too, I like the coach. But I think that second year, you saw a little bit of it. And this past year, I wouldn't say he was awful. I just think he was all right. He was all right. It'd be different if he was, like, dirt garbage. So then it's like you got a season where he was really, really good and dirt garbage. I think he was really, really good, and he was like, all right. So I think it's somewhere in the middle. So I think he could be somewhere in the middle and be a little bit above that.
He threw 14 picks at 21 touchdowns last year.
He did.
That's worse. That is okay. I'm not trying to just continue bashing him, but you guys are talking about 2 years ago.
Bash him.
You guys are talking about like 2 years ago, right? And like how he started showing flashes, blah blah. A second year with the same head coach, consistency. He kept pretty much everybody on that same team, including his running back, tight end, 2 out of the 3 wide receivers. They did add Calvin Ridley, and I understand that. And he didn't live up to full expectations. But he took a huge step back. And that just doesn't give momentum for me, I guess. Now, could the motivation within the division, I like that point. I think that could help him, seeing Stroud. And
I think that's probably my main point.
Building that a little bit. But, man, he's about to enter to that same exact point. He could enter into a division that he is actually behind on. This Colts team nearly made the playoffs without their star franchise player. And Jonathan Taylor was out for a big portion of the year. And you got C.J. Stroud coming in here, losing half of his weapons to injuries. And boom, he still comes in and takes him all the way to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence might be tied
the
for
third best quarterback in that division. Is that what you're saying?
No. Their team. No, I would take Stroud over Trevor Lawrence.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah,
And I'll have to see more of Anthony Richardson. But
you got to see more of Richardson.
I don't know. So let's be honest here. No one wants to pay any of these 3 guys.
No. If gun to our head, we're not paying. We're not paying any of these guys. I think, Kirk Cousins. See, the thing with Dak is, to Zoo's point, Dak is just you. We kind of know what he is. Like, he could break through. He could, but it would be more likely if he broke through. If, say, the teams he was playing, a major injury happened and they just had like a yellow brick road down to the Super Bowl. Like, it'd have to be injuries on the other side. I think with Tua, he's just limited. To Zoo's point, I'm not. The weather thing is a factor, but I also just think talent-wise, Tyreek covers up a lot of stuff. If you put Tyreek on every team in the NFL, outside of maybe Bryce and I don't know,
Daniel Jones,
name another bad team, Mac Jones. I think he makes those 2 teams better, but you put him on any other team in the NFL, and they're probably a win better. Because Tyreek is just a mismatch. Because whoever Tyreek is on that team, he's going to be probably the number 1 receiver. And then that means their best receiver on that said team before that is going to be the number 2, and then that's going to open everything up. Yeah. But I think with Tua, he's just a little bit limited. I don't think his arm talent is as good as Dak's or Trevor's. I think he's not a special athlete, and he's small. And I think it does help him being in Miami. It's, if he was playing in, New York or Buffalo, I don't know how much of his skill set. Yeah, Green Bay, I don't know how much of his skill set would be, even if he had Tyreek, would be on display. Because come October and those, 15, 20 mile per hour winds, I don't know if I'm not saying he's got a weak arm, but you guys know what I mean. Like, I just don't think
he's underthrown Tyreek
as high as those 2.
Tyreek has outrun some of his throws, that's for sure.
Pat never did that. So, and I don't want to compare him to Pat because that's just ridiculous. But Trevor's it's the factor of him being younger. I think this is a prove it year, though. I will say this is a prove it year. He is not like, he's got 2 or 3 more years of figuring out. He needs to this year show that for instance, I think Trevor is some pressure on him to win the division because now, like you said, you got CJ, 100%. And if Richardson comes in and starts dealing, now you're looking like now I got 2 members in this division. I might need to turn up and win it and show like who's boss because I am the elder statesman here. So it is pressure on him. I will say. I
just thought this was his prove it year last year. That was it. Yeah.
I do love that's hilarious.
He was coming in hot off that playoffs. I was high on him.
No, he was crazy hot off the press. I think he was like, they were probably talking about him probably being top 5 guy in the AFC.
I think he was probably the biggest fantasy bust at quarterback this year.
No,
besides injuries, for sure.
It was awful in fantasy.
Yeah,
just awful.
Yeah. I think he got picked high because of Calvin. Maybe they're
I remember
they're. Maybe they're throwing routes right now as we speak, and they're trying to get that chemistry down. Because we know he's got it with Christian Kirk for sure.
No, he loves Christian.
Yeah, that's his dude. So
we'll see.
I do love how you brought up the Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence rivalry because that's been
a great rivalry, dude.
It's been a thing forever. Yeah,
since QB1.
Yeah. So we'll see. But like we said, man, free agency is coming up. We're going to see where these quarterbacks land. To a lesser extent, the running backs and receivers. And as you guys saw in the first segment, we love to talk about the draft. So. All of that's going to be coming up and more. Make sure you tune in to Tyson Talks on Instagram and look at all the content we're putting up on there. TikTok as well. Tyson Talks _ YouTube, Quantrill Knows. And for me, Zoo, and P-Bush, we are out.